Today we're going to find out how we can separate a mixture of rice, iron filings, which we're going to use BBs today, salt, and sand. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to put all of these into a beaker and mix them up. Okay, so now what I'd like for you to do is stop the video and you're going to ask your students, what do you think is the first thing, what's the easiest thing to get out of that mixture? What would you do first? All right, hopefully your students told you that the easiest thing to get out would be the BBs. So we're going to take a magnet and see how many BBs we can get out of this mixture. Okay. Still some more in there. Alright, so all of the BBs are now out of the mixture. So let's go ahead, whoops, still some more coming out. Let's go ahead and stop the video and ask your students, what would you think you should do next? Hopefully your students told you that the next easiest thing to get out would be the rice. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the mixture through a strainer. Now, what's going through the strainer right now? Your students should have been able to tell you that the sand and the salt are going through the strainer all over the table, and the rice is staying on the top of the strainer. Okay, so what do we have now in our cup? Your students should have said that there's sand and salt in the cup. The rice stayed in the top of the strainer. Go ahead and stop the video and ask your students, what would be the next step in order to get the sand and the salt away from each other? How could we separate that mixture? All right, hopefully your students said that you would be able to add water. So our next step is we're going to put some water into our cup and stir. Now, as I'm stirring, what is happening to the salt? Hopefully your students said that the salt is dissolving into the water. What does the word dissolve mean? The word dissolve means that it is you can no longer see it. It's going into the water. All right, so I've stirred this up really well, and you can see that there's a separation here. So on the bottom we have the sand, and here in the middle we have the salt and the water combined. So stop the video and ask your students, how could we separate the sand and the salt water now? All right, hopefully your students said that we could pour this through a filter. So we are going to pour this right through here. You can see that the water is coming out underneath. Still pretty cloudy. I could stop right there and maybe leave the sand in the top, but I'm going to go ahead and pour the whole thing in there and use my spoon to put this through. And what's coming through to the bottom beaker? Your students should have said that the salt water is coming through to the bottom beaker. And what's going to happen to the sand? The sand is going to stay in the filter. We're going to speed this up a little bit. I'm just going to squeeze that filter and you can see that the water comes through. And now I have my sand in the top, easily separated from that mixture. All right, so what we have left is salt and water, and we call that a what, class? We call it a solution. So we're going to stop the video and find out, what do you think your class thinks? How can we separate and get the salt out of that water? Hopefully your class told you that they want to put that on a hot plate. So we are going to take our solution of salt and water and put it on the hot plate, and let's find out what happens.